The year was 1971. Richard Nixon was president. Attica was a chant. The weathermen blew things up. Alan Shepard hit a golf ball miles on the moon, and Hamburger got a helper. We also had the Pentagon Papers. We were all in the family. I was a meathead. Woody made us all bananas. Lennon asked us to imagine. A fiddler fiddled on the roof. The Vietnam War raged, and I was drafted. A draft was a large part of life and something most young Americans had to think about. It was a rite of passage to see if you got to go to Vietnam and kill a bunch of people whose only crime was they wanted to rule their own country. We were very successful at it. We killed 3 million Vietnamese men, women, and children. And that's not counting the Laotians, the Thais, and the Cambodians. And who knows whom else we dropped out computerized precision bombs on back in that particular police action. For the first 17 years, only poor Americans and crazy middle-class kids who volunteered went to Vietnam. But then the country started to run out of poor and crazy kids, and lots of unwilling upper-middle-class kids had to go to Vietnam. That was the end of that war, eventually. Of course, if you were a Bush or a Quayle, all you had to worry about was if the coke dealer at Yale was delivering the good stuff or not, or if your family got one of the many lucrative war contracts. When you were drafted, your induction notice comes in the form of a letter from the President of the United States. It is literally a letter that says the President of the United States invites you to join the Army of the United States. I believe it was even signed by the President. I can't remember. I never did take a close look at this one and only invitation I and most people will ever see from the President. I was 19 at the time I received my notice and a student in New York City. The problem was college deferments no longer worked. Nope. Before me, lots of people got out of going to the Army simply doing what their parents wanted them to do most, continue their education. But when I came along, they decided to be fair and square and spread the pain around evenly. Lucky me. In 1971, the U.S. Army switched to a lottery. That's what they called it, a lottery. Psst, kid, come here, look. See what I have? Extra lottery tickets. You want to buy one? Let you have it cheap. No, why not? What are you, chicken? You don't want to fight for your country, you sissy? That is what they used to call anybody who didn't believe in the Vietnam War, a chicken or a sissy. After all, you couldn't disagree with why we're in Vietnam, and killing people in the Army is heroic. And who doesn't want to be a hero, an American hero? The year I turned 19, we had a lottery to see who went to Vietnam and who didn't. And ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you I won my first and only lottery. That's how they did it, lottery by birth date, and my birthday fell in slot number 33. The way it worked was they started on slot 1 and sent draft notices to all the kids with that birthday, and then just moved on down the list till they filled their quota. That pretty much meant that if there was a lottery, I was probably getting drafted. Well, there was a lottery, and I was drafted. My parents had moved out of New York City 2 years earlier. I had stayed in the city, but I used their Long Island address as my legal address. So that's where they sent my draft notice. On one of my weekend visits, my parents presented me with this kind invitation from the President. Since I personally didn't know the President and I had no desire to join his police action, I threw this kind invitation away and continued with my life. But the President, he was a persistent man. He did send me a second notice, which I also threw away. It seemed that the man felt very strongly about me being in his army. I don't know why, because I know if I had joined his army, I would have ended up dead or in a stockade, or maybe both. But he did send 2 police officers to my parents' house to hand deliver a copy of this kind invitation. And those 2 police officers had to go back with a signed receipt to show the man they had done their duty, and I had been duly invited.